I'm working for 50 Hertz, one of the German TSOs, and I'm here today as my role as the convener of the ENTSO-E RMI working group, which is responsible for drafting the reports and coordinating all the inputs with the relevant experts. So within the last weeks and months, we did that, and actually we're very happy to publish both reports end of last week, so on 28th of June. Both reports have been published on the ENTSO-E website, and today in this webinar, we're going to present you the main highlights we also have in these reports. And I will lead us through the day. So then maybe on the next slide, let's start with a look on the agenda. Yeah, first of all, we're going to have some introduction notes from Oliver John, who is the ENTSO-E Market Committee Vice Chair. And then we have split up the webinar into two blocks. First one is focusing on the market report 2024, where we start with an overview on what happened in regards to all the TSOs, projects and methodologies coming from FCA and CACM guideline. This will be presented by Ludivine Marsunac. And afterwards, Jim Wilson will present us what has happened regarding the evolution of long-term markets, followed then by Andre Estermann presenting the developments of the short-term markets, meaning day ahead and intraday. And I will, in the end of this first block, give you an overview about further topics we also present in the market report. And after that, the second session is focused on the balancing report 2024, which is in this year a separate report, where our colleagues Sarah Meyer and Jose Ignacio will guide you through the content. And then in the end, we wrap everything up with a Q&A session, where you can post your questions and then we are happy to answer them. So then on the next slide, a few more organizational things. As you might have noticed, the webinar will be recorded. So we do this just to make it also available to other people later on to watch it afterwards. And for the questions, as mentioned, for the Q&A session, we are using Slido, which is a tool where you can post your questions, and later on we collect them and answer them then like in a structured way at the end. So I would recommend to register in Slido right now, so you can then within the presentations already post your questions. You have two options to do this. Either you can use your mobile phone, just scan the QR code, and then you can enter directly by your phone, or the other way, if you go on your computer in the browser and type www.slido.com and insert the event code, then you can also do it via the computer. And I leave this slide now a few seconds more, so for everyone to register. But yeah, anyway, we also gonna show this slide again later on through the webinar, so don't worry in case this was too quick for you now. But this should be it for the introduction. And now I would, for the formal introduction, I would give the word now to Oliver John, who will give us some introduction words.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. Thanks everyone for joining, really. It's good to see that we have a good participation. 95 people I see are attending this webinar. So it's great to see that there are so many of you joining this. I hope it's an interesting presentation, an interesting facts we are going to tell you. I'm, as Marco introduced already, the Vice Chair of the Market Committee of ENTSO-E. That's the committee that's really looking at markets and also at this market report, of course. Let's maybe first, and this is what this slide is all about, take a step back and think why we need European markets. And there's, for electricity, there's three big reasons, which you see on the screen there. First of all is with this big European market, we can dispatch the most efficient resources. We can use the most efficient generation and demand across Europe, and that creates efficiency. So that brings prices down, and we have an efficient use of our resources in Europe. Number two, security. We've had a lot of instances where, countries, bidding zones that had supply shortages could be assisted by their neighbors with exports and imports. So that increases system security and resilience of the European market. And number three, sustainability. In this big European market, we are obviously able to share renewable resources across our entire continent. And that brings CO2 emissions down and increases also Europeans' independence from fossil fuels and imports from elsewhere. Now, the big legal framework that surrounds this European market is the network codes. And on the next slide, you see the three big network codes that are relevant in this context. Europe's electricity market is organized in timeframes. We have a long-term, short-term, and real-time market. So the long-term market, essentially a year ahead, maybe even longer in future, is governed by the FCA regulation, and we're issuing long-term transmission rights. The nearer future, the short-term markets, are governed by the CACM regulation, that's day ahead in intraday trading. And real time, we have the balancing guideline, the balancing regulation that explains or sets the rules for the exchange of the procurement and exchange of balancing capacity and balancing energy. These are the three big network codes, and our market report is about monitoring the implementation of those three. And you're going to hear in this webinar a lot more about all this, what happened in the in the last year with regard to implementation of those three network codes in particular. And I have a few highlights, which are going to be in the next slide, which you're going to be hearing a lot more about in the course of the further presentation. But this is just, in the beginning, maybe to set the scene what happened in 2023 and 4. Big accomplishment of the intraday auction that recently went live. Capacity allocation to Ukraine is now possible, so we can trade electricity between EU countries and Ukraine. That was a big success. Some regulatory initiatives that have taken place. First of all, Italy North is now part of the central capacity calculation region, where we calculate capacity core. And we are constantly monitoring the 70% EU trading targets. And we are increasingly compliant also with the ESA market monitoring report that is monitoring this as well. So there we are as well converging. So some big successes. We have further initiatives envisaged in 2024 and 5. In particular, flow-based is going to be implemented in the Nordic region, and we're going to decrease the granularity of the products, so to be more flexible, to integrate renewables, accommodate more flexible trading. We're going to implement the 15 minutes market time unit. So some very good progress we can report on. Things are not as easy as they are put on this slide always. We've yesterday, and I might want to mention this as well, had a rather controversial meeting of our market committee where we were discussing the long-term flow-based allocation, which was supposed to be flow-based on a flow-based basis, but we had major concerns of some of us, some TSOs, but also regulators, we think. Some have fundamental issues, conceptual issues with flow-based in long term, because the information in long term is not available to the extent it is in day ahead and intraday when you can use this concept. And this yesterday led us to conclude that the long-term flow-based, which was originally envisaged for 2024 and JAO was ready to implement it by 2025, November 2025, could not be confirmed in that meeting. Now we are looking forward to discussing this controversial subject with you also, with EU stakeholder community, regulators, etc., ESA, to find good solutions for this issue. These are the big highlights. I'm very much looking forward myself personally also to hear more about them. We're going to go into details on all of them, and I pass the word to my colleagues, Ludivine, Jim, Andre, and Marco, who are going to take you through the rest of the presentation and the content of the market report. I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks a lot for this introduction. I will take it over now and introduce you the market report. So where we start with a just brief background of the market report, what it is about, and basically ENTSO-E is using it to fulfill its regulatory monitoring obligations regarding the implementation of the 3 network codes, FCA, CSM, and balancing, as already mentioned. So right now, ENTSO-E is comprised of like 40 member TSOs from 36 countries, and we are every year publishing this market report to monitor the FCA and CSM, as well as the balancing guideline. Every other year, the balancing guideline is monitored via a separate report, which is also the case this year. That's why we have split it up into 2 different sessions. And the market report is covering the period from June 23 to May 24. And as already mentioned, we are reporting on all the timeframes regarding FCA and CSM, which is long-term, day-ahead, intraday, and then the separate balancing report will handle the balancing markets. And also what I will then at the end of the market report session present is some current and future developments that we have at the moment in discussion and that we also included in the market report. So that's maybe it for the brief background, and I want to give the word now to Ludivine to go through the FCA and CSM updates.
Thank you very much, Marco, and also good morning from my side. So we will start with the long-term and the FCA regulation requirements. So in 2023 and 24, we have been working on the implementation of a long-term flow-based allocation, which is regulated in 4 OTSO methodologies. So the first one is the harmonized allocation rules, the single allocation platform requirements, the congestion income distribution methodology, and the methodology for ensuring firmness and remuneration of long-term transmission rights. We had also several workshops with stakeholders, and as Oliver mentioned earlier, I think we will continue the discussions with stakeholders and the NRAs and ACER to further work on implementing a long-term market. If we go to the next slide, we will now move to the CSM regulation. And in that area, we have been submitting the determination of the CCRs. So for 2 main changes. So the first one was the merge of Core and Italy North for the day-ahead timeframe. This was a request that we received from ACER in July 2023, and the submission happened on the 30th of November 2023. The same amendment was including the Celtic Cable Interconnector. This is an interconnector between France and Ireland that will go live in the next years. And it's including this Celtic interconnector in Core and in the Central Europe CCR. The ACER approved these changes in March this year, and we, in the meantime, are also supporting the development that are made in the energy community countries, and will therefore most likely submit also an amendment related to that in the next month or years. Regarding the congestion income distribution, according to the ACER decision in December 2021, TSOs have developed an amendment, including solution to address the transfer of congestion income between different CCRs to tackle the non-intuitive flows caused by the advanced hybrid coupling and the flow-based. And now the TSOs are implementing this methodology. On the DevEd schedule exchange methodology, it's a part of the algorithm. The algorithm is calculating the schedule exchange, and we have made an amendment, or TSO made an amendment to make sure that the calculation is completed in enough short times for the algorithm to find solutions. It's also, it was developed in the framework of the 15 minutes go live, which will happen next year. So to make sure that we are fully ready to have results in the time allocated for the algorithm. And last year, we had the successful go live of a core flow based on the 28th of May 2024. And the Nordic flow based go live is planned to go live a bit in Q3 this year. And if we move to the next slide, this is an update on the joint NEMOS and TSO project. So the annual report was developed and presented by all NEMO committee in their first CSCM annual conference last year. And on the SDAC and SIDC cost, the 2022 CSCM cost report was submitted in September last year. It's an annual report. We will deliver also this one this year. And on the algorithm methodology, the amendment proposal was submitted by NEMOS to Acer end of last year. The amendment considered the requirements by the TSO for the co-optimization of the balancing energy. So there's still work needed, and the approval process is ongoing, and the decision is expected in Q3 this year. And I will let the floor now to my colleagues that will dig into the implementation of the long-term and further the DevEd and intraday market. Floor to you, Jim.
Thank you, Ludwig, and good morning to everyone. My name is Jim Wilson. I work for the Danish TSO Energinet, and I am the co-convener in the Market Integration Working Group, where we tackle FCA topics, so forward capacity allocation topics, and also CSCM topics. The focus of my presentation here today is the forward capacity allocation, so the long-term markets. And if we move to the next topic, or next slide, please. So the long-term, the TSO long-term markets is run by the SAP, the Single Allocation Platform, which is JAO, the Joint Allocation Office, which operates the forward capacity allocation. And it has been in operation since November 2018, and it auctions cross-border transmission capacity rights, as we also know as long-term transmission rights. As of today, 2024, it covers 67 bidding zones, directional borders, and has more than 440 active market participants. If we take a look at the map, not all of the countries are green here, and that's because, or that's due to derogation from offering long-term transmission rights. But some of the countries offer different hedging products when it comes to the long-term market. As of today, the Joint Allocation Office, JAO, has allocated more than 5,200 auctions since the start of the operation in 2018. If we go to the next slide, please. So some general findings and figures and facts from the market report on the FCA topic is that we see on average the demand for LTTRs increase the supply, and we have increased auctions throughout the years. On average, there is 37 participants in each auction, and JAO rewards around 17 market participants on average per each auctions, and the allocated capacity is around 1 megawatt actually per each market participants. We also see that we have increased the auctions year by year. The sharp decrease in auctions from 2020 to 2021, if you look at the left bottom corner, is the exit of some borders that had a large capacity offered in the long-term market due to the Brexit. But since then, we have a sharp or steady increase of capacity offer, and that is, of course, more borders coming online and being operated by JAO as SEB operator. In 2023, JAO carried out 881 long-term auctions, which is a very high and successful number. Out of these auctions, some of them are still PTRs, so physical transmission rights, with the possibility to nominate capacity and flow on the interconnector. However, around 5% of the physical transmission rights are actually nominated, so 95% is not nominated and are settled as financial transmission rights. We also see that around 95% of the capacity that we sell, or the long-term transmission right that we sell, is not reallocated to later auctions. So around 5% of the capacity is returned and reallocated to subsequent auctions. And of course, more of these numbers and more interesting facts on the long-term TSO market can be found in the market report, which is, of course, the main focus of this webinar. If we go to the next topic, or next slide. So throughout the years, the single allocation platform has constantly been developed. In terms of operations, there are quite some changes coming up. We are introducing FTRs pretty much all around Europe, and also the 50-minute products will go live. The change to FTRs, so financial transmission rights from physical transmission rights, has happened on a broad scale, specifically in core, due to the introduction of flow-based day-ahead coupling. And we also see that the single allocation platform is being prepared and adapted to be able to handle the 15-minute day-ahead market products. In terms of regulation, there are quite some regulation for the long-term market. One of the most important one is the harmonized allocation rule, and also, of course, the EMDR, European Market Design Reform, that took place over the last sort of 2 years, also will have an impact on single allocation platform. The later one, we don't know what effect it will have, but we know it will have an effect. So the change of harmonized allocation rules, which is the rules for allocating capacity to market participants, was approved in December last year and had quite some changes. One of those was, of course, the long-term flow-based allocation product, but also the 15-minute MTU, the remuneration articles, and also collaterals. And then the EMDR established an impact assessment by the European Commission to identify the optimal model for the foreign market. And this is, of course, followed by an amendment of the forward capacity guidelines. And we expect this to take place in the end of 2025. And this could, of course, change the way we allocate capacity and the way what kind of products we are to allocate, but that is to be seen. And then I have to go back one more. Thank you. And then if we go to the welfare part, the long-term flow-based allocation product, as Oliver mentioned in the beginning, it has been worked on by the JAO and the TSOs to implement long-term flow-based allocation in core and Nordic CCRs since 2024. However, also mentioned in the introduction, there was a decision by the TSOs to not be able to have a clear deadline on the implementation. And to give some background here, in November 2024, after the harmonized allocation rules were agreed, they were an agreement inside JAO and TSOs that the increased scope of harmonized allocation rules could not be implemented by the set forth deadline, November 2024, for long-term flow-based allocation. And then the TSOs took the opportunity at this point to start a conceptual discussion on the long-term design based on the result from the allocation and also based on the question raised by market participants and some NRAs. Following the analysis from, and of course the work continued during this time, and then following this discussions and analysis, different TSOs saw a need to amend the long-term market in various degrees and urgencies to cover the need from the market participants. As a result, there was no qualified majority during the all TSO meeting yesterday to restart or continue the development. Hence, a go live in November 2025 cannot be confirmed. And the TSOs will, of course, continue the discussion and analysis on how the way forward should look for the long-term market in Europe. I think that was the last slide for me. Thanks.
Okay, so I take over. Thank you very much, Jim, everybody. My name is Andre Estermann. I'm working for 50 Hertz, one of the German TSOs, and I'm also the TSO chairman of Market Coupling. Happy to be here today and greatly appreciate that we have this wonderful report in front of us. So I will guide you through the key insights. Obviously, more is in the report itself. So looking back at 2022 and 3, we established jointly with NEMO now a joint forum, the Market Coupling Steering Committee, where we work together on all matters which are day ahead and intraday. This is very much due to the fact that we not only have the IDAs, which are an intersect between the two timeframes, but also the way of working, the efficiency and the resources needed in order to ensure timely delivery of extremely complex requirements towards us are at the forefront of our interest. Hence, having also an organization that represents this way of working moving forward is something that we are very much upholding. Therefore, we see it as a major step in the right direction. Adding to that, we also now from the TSOs have ensured that our organizations are able to cope perfectly with this new way of working, not just between the market coupling and the other projects, being it balancing others out there, have a joint channel to communicate, which I think from the TSO perspective makes it valuable, as we are not just active in the day ahead in intraday markets. When it comes to the day ahead in intraday markets, we set up in 2022 the market coupling consultative groups, where also TSO conveners are joining forces with, on the one side, conveners from the NEMOs as well as from the market participants. So this trilateral setup is invaluable to exchange regularly, at least twice a year, detailed information, technical information about the next steps of market coupling. It worked very well in the ramp up towards the intraday auctions. but we will continue to use those and improve the way of working towards the flow-based Nordic Go Live or the introduction of 15 minutes ISP in 2025, and every element of advancement and market coupling moving forward. Hence, the MCCG has proven as a very valuable tool for everybody who is dedicated to ensure that markets are not just up and running, but also future-proof. In respect to the internal organization itself, we introduced and mirrored, I said earlier, the way of working from intraday, in this case, to day ahead. So we introduced also a working group led also by a TSO expert, which looks about a proper road mapping for the future. So this ESTA Quorum Group is the one that plans the business as well as the technical side for the foreseeable future to ensure that we have a proper pipeline to go live. It is not so much about the question of priorities, which are also discussed in the wider discussion, but this is really ensuring that there's a proper ramp up towards the inclusion of project new functionalities, but also ensuring that the systems are able to cope with those future requirements properly. So also those things are planned in close alignment with the various service providers. A very important step forward in anticipation of the change in the CACM guideline, which unfortunately was put on hold. We introduced jointly with NEMOS a QMV, qualified majority voting, which is active as of 2022. Obviously, this is also transposed to the TSO only and the NEMO only practices, which makes it very efficient in case there are need to make important decisions where some parties might have reservations towards. Nonetheless, we are able to cope with them as we are operational. So we always need decisions which are properly done in order to move forward, and not discussions are endless, in order to ensure that the markets are running robustly. In order to further increase the optimization in the project, the resource optimization, but also the streamlining of services, we have introduced a single project management team across all working groups, across the entire chain from SDAC, IDAS to intraday, ensuring that we not only work together hand in hand, but also ensuring that non-silos exist in the project where certain information might not come from one to the other side. And we already see that this is an extremely fruitful decision and step that we have taken moving forward. As I said earlier, in anticipation of the CACM 2.0, which we assume to be coming soon, we introduced a governance task force that ensures that the various tasks which will be or which should be handled by the market coupling are addressed in a single body jointly with TSOs and NEMOS moving forward. And also developing relative TCMs on terms and conditions and methodologies in order to ensure that, for example, procedures are done hand in hand between the TSOs, the NEMOS, but also the market participants. And this is a full chain which needs to work properly. Also, therefore, a relative body needs to be available. Hence, the governance task force is the way to go. Unfortunately, we somewhat had to put it on hold due to this delayed or persistent delay of the CACM. Now, we are in the position that we would like to restart that. So we will discuss that over the summer in order to ensure that once CACM 2.0 is actually there, we are not only in the position to react, but also we are in the position to use the information and the obligations that are stemming on us in the most efficient way, and upholding the requirements that are posed to us. Moving to the next slide. The one thereafter. Thank you. More precisely towards SDAC. So this is an extremely beautiful picture, and I think it's sometimes undervalued. We have by far the largest interconnected electricity market in the world. And I also like to highlight two things. First of all, it's interconnected. So it works together with an overarching one set of rules among 27 plus countries. And in the near future, 8 additional countries will join from the energy community countries. So we are talking 35 plus countries. Secondly, this is a market that works. So it's not just there's free formation of prices and also investments done in that way. So in that sense, I think it's something that we should cherish and uphold. We have seen that despite some negative political talks throughout the energy crisis of 22, but also somewhat leading into 23, and also now seeing with the transition towards more renewables, that this market ensures that there is as much as possible stability in terms of price formation moving forward. So we are very, very grateful that not only this is there, but also it's operating on a daily basis. We use one algorithm to do so, which is Euphemia, which is gathered around quite some R&D investments on our side, ensuring that the algorithm is not only to cope with those challenges that we currently see, but also with challenges that are more in the future, and also the systems and the IT baseline is ready to cope with those things. As we all understand, there will be more and more pressure on the algorithm. Therefore, we have to be in foresight of those events happening, flow-based obviously being one of them, 15 minutes being the next one. And we will continuously obviously involve and inform all market participants via the MCCG how this plays out. One criticism that we sometimes get is that in market coupling we are non-inclusive, which is obviously not the case, as you can already see on the countries, and will not be there due to the fact that even more countries will join. But we also are able to include new NEMOs with new types of business models, trying to approach the market, making it more competitive towards the market participants to choose freely which NEMO they would like to render services from. So the BRM NEMO in Romania was added to the SDAC, and soon ETPA, which is already active in intraday. A Dutch NEMO is already part of the pipeline to be included in the near future. But we also see that certain service providers are not able or willing to move forward, so they're also able to exit from market coupling, which I think is the way forward, that we have the opportunity to opt in and opt out, obviously under the preface of stable and secure operations. In total, at this point in time, we are talking 32 TSOs and 16 NEMOs are active. And as I said, this number, it will significantly increase moving forward. In August 2023, the SEC, the Scheduled Exchange Calculation Methodology, was updated by the old TSOs, which ensured a more efficient way of calculating flows between NEMOs, particularly between NEMOs, multiple NEMOs in one bidding zone. This is very, very important for us. As I said earlier, we need to find every opportunity to improve the way the the Euphemia algorithm works, and the calculation time is reduced as much as possible. In June 2023, due to the second auction, we also added or changed the negative prices, the maximum negative prices on several NEMO borders to -500 €. And unfortunately also saw a major incident in the Finnish bidding zone in November 2023 due to a significant erroneous sell bid in the market. This has led and continues to lead to quite some discussions how to improve the full chain. And I would like not to underestimate this assessment, but also the impact on the way of working, that we will continuously, even more so, review the processes on the NEMO side, on the TSO side, plus the joint systems and the output of the joint systems moving forward. So in that sense, the investigation as such is somewhat concluded, whereas the implementation of mitigation measures is ongoing and will take into consideration those effects, but also other effects that we currently see in the market, with, for example, with the phase out of the second auction procedures as we have it right now, in order to make room and timeliness for the calculation of the algorithm moving forward. So what's 15 minutes? ESDAC continues to operate successfully with no decoupling of markets. However, we had one decoupling, partial decoupling just a few days ago, which is always a very, very unfortunate event. And we do our utmost on all sides from TSOs, from NEMOs, but also from market participants, I presume, to ensure that the markets are running appropriately. Not just by the fact that we have the central systems ready, but we're also ensuring that local systems or regional systems are able to cope with the continuous and extended stress that they are under. In addition to that, we are also now or have shown how fallback processes work, particularly something that has been apparently also new in the understanding towards the market participants, that the core CCR is able to use as the first measure of a fallback to carry on the coupling in the large region due to the fact that multiple NEMOs are present. So all NEMOs that are still able to work with the central algorithm are also therefore able to carry on the capacities throughout the topology. So I think this is a right step in the other way. But we also have seen that fallback procedures, which are done, for example, on the Hansa border or the Nordic borders, are able to cope with the current situation. But obviously, additional things we are thinking of in light also of the previously mentioned process in the Finnish area to ensure that coupling is possible under almost all circumstances. Moving forward to the next slide, we see the various evolutions. I don't think that we need to go into technicalities of Euphemia or the PMB, which handles the capacities. But what we have done is that we are ensuring that the 15 minutes and the extended flow-based topology is sufficiently included already in the various releases and the updates of the infrastructure moving forward to ensure that the markets are running properly. For our perspective, and also as a lessons learned out of the recent incident, we see that the multi-NEMO arrangement extends now to even more borders, which obviously is a good news that not only the services are rendered by more NEMOs, but also there are more NEMOs able to ensure that the markets are running properly. While moving forward to 2025, we will remove the PUN, which is an Italian standard price, in order to uphold the timeliness of the computation and other measures that we are currently deploying or testing in order to be put into operations. For the future improvements, we will continue and even extend the Euphemia Lab program. It is essentially an R&D scheme which has multiple iterations or steps to move forward, to talk about to define parameters for future evolutions of the algorithm, of the system, of the way how to use the system and what type of functionalities might or might not be in. The next step is obviously the go live of flow-based in the Nordic region. We just list here the, let's say, the highest level or the biggest project as such, but there are also multiple projects steps in between. But the Nordic flow-based certainly is a major step in the project, and we are very happy that the Nordic TSOs are diligently preparing and testing with us the systems in order to go live in October 24. More in the future, we are working closely with the core TSOs to introduce advanced hybrid coupling, which is then also very much the way that the Nordic flow-based system will work. And I think this will also be a major step forward, looking also at Hansa in other regions that a more advanced way of using flow-based and network topology in markets is assigned properly. The 50 minutes MTU or market time unit or ISP, imbalance settlement period inclusion will happen in early 2024 with a phased go live of intraday auctions as well, day ahead moving forward. And further advancement also on the CCR side will be taken into consideration moving forward, particularly the merge of Italian other borders and core CCR. Moving to the next slide. Then we go to the intraday markets. Again, a lovely picture or map of Europe, all green. Obviously, now we have closed the loop since last year. That intraday as well as day ahead markets are active in all countries. Hence, further developments are somewhat at the forefront of the discussion. Nonetheless, SIDC, or the underlying IT system, XBIT, is able to run almost on a millisecond basis continuous allocations across border throughout all countries of Europe. And what we can very much see is that also the liquidity, which has been quite different in the various countries, is spreading throughout. And we are actually running from one record to another over the years, which we will also see on the following slide. At this point in time, as said earlier, 27 countries are in, 25 are operational, at least with one borders. We have 30 TSOs and 50 NEMOs. As said, with the inclusion of more NEMOs, we will have most likely a match of day ahead and intraday in the very foreseeable future. In the past, we extended intraday with go live waves. However, we have seen that this measurement or this idea of like an ending or adding new borders, parties, functionalities to the way of working in intraday or day ahead is not the way forward. So we will introduce, as of 2025, a window approach, which is clearly set with a starting and an endpoint to ensure that we do not postpone further go lives by extending the waves throughout time. In the XBIT system, in the continuous trading system, we have so far more than 371 million trades executed. Well, we are actually significantly above 400 million right now, which also shows that we have a continuous need to extend the technical infrastructure on which XBIT is running and the service level agreements with the service provider moving forward, at which we are working as we speak. Going to the next slide, you see an overview of the transactions and the trades. The transactions are essentially everything that is included in the system by a trader, and the trades are then the transactions which are matched in order to have a buy and a sell order together. In the past, we have always seen that there is circa a 1 to 2 to 1 relationship, a bit different in the beginning. Now, this has been somewhat the standard for last years. As said earlier, we are running from one record to the other. And I've also seen that whenever something happens on the day ahead market, being on the capacity calculation and or allocation side, that the continuous markets are very well equipped operationally, but also technically to ensure that unmatched positions are matched even with a significant higher load of the system. We expect that even further growth will happen. This is very much also due to the fact that more and more robot trading is introduced in by traders in the intraday market, which we always have to ensure that this is also then included in our way of working and the investments that we have to do in the R&D in order to ensure that this new way of trading is accommodated across the full topology. Moving to the next slide, and here we see the SIDC elements. Obviously, the biggest project ever in market coupling has been the go live of intraday auctions, which run 3 times a day. One shortly after the day ahead has closed at 3 o'clock, D-1, the other one at 10 o'clock at night, D-1, and the other one 10 o'clock in the morning during the day for the next 12 hours. Here we were able to include this, let's call it the third platform of coupled markets just some time ago, and we do see that the inclusion, the big bang or the super big bang of 27 countries is challenging, not just for the TSOs, nor for the NEMOs, nor for the service providers, but also for the market participants to ease into a new way of working. But we are hopeful with more acceptance, more knowledge, better or refined procedures, that all types of trading, being a day ahead, IDAS or continuous trading, will have their place moving forward. We will obviously onboard more parties and borders in the future. So this is something that we are currently working on. So we're also very happy that we found proper solutions on all borders, very much with support of the Joint Allocation Office JAO, that the congestion income is also properly handled between the NEMOs, JAO, as well as TSOs as the recipient of the CI. Moving forward, we are working very much onto the R&D side of the flow-based introduction in continuous trading and or the auctions. While the flow-based capacity calculation process in the CCRs are running according to timeline, we are quite under scrutiny in the project itself to ensure that flow-based allocation is also possible. This is due to the fact that the complexity, which was not foreseen multiple years ago when methodologies or guidelines have been drafted, are significantly larger than it was anticipated. So we are continuously on multiple streams of R&D to find ways or solutions that flow-based can also be introduced, especially in allocation, continuous allocation moving forward. But the complexity level obviously is significantly higher than it was anticipated by, I suppose, all parties in the beginning. The introduction of implicit losses is also a measure that is not straightforward and something that we are working on, ensuring that we also have a match between what happens in the day ahead or intraday auctions in respect to losses by relevant cables, for example. That this is also then taken over in the continuous trading, whereas in continuous trading, similar to the flow-based, it has just a very different mechanism to uphold. Hence, this type of functionality in a millisecond trading scheme has his perks, hence more R&D is also needed on our side, but we are hopeful that we find a pragmatic solution moving forward, not to deteriorate the performance of the system on the other hand, but to ensure that functionalities are onboarded in a safe and secure manner, ensuring that even more welfare can be created on all measures. So I think this is essentially it for the day ahead introductory time frame. Very happy to be here. Thank you very much and looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much for these very interesting insights on the different topics of the market report. I will now present you the highlights that we also included in the market report in the second chapter, right at the beginning, where we highlight some, from our point of view, important ongoing discussions and developments. To begin with, what was mentioned already by Oliver in the introduction, the trade development with Ukraine and Moldova. Here we saw a very, very positive development during the reporting period. The capacity or the electricity exchange between Ukraine and Moldova was actually stabilized and increased. And also since beginning of this year, the Ukrainian TSO, Ukrenergo, became a full member of ENTSO-E. And also since beginning of this year, we have extended the capacity allocation processes on the Ukrainian borders to Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia, meaning that right now we have coordinated capacity allocation in the day-ahead time frame on all Ukrainian borders. So if you want to have more information on this, please look at the report where we have more data also on the developments of the capacity on the individual borders. The next topic is the further shaping of the long-term markets, as already mentioned by Jim in his presentation on the long term. Here we see also a connection to the market design reform that will be come into force very shortly. So as mentioned, there will be this impact assessment carried out by the European Commission, and we are currently preparing an advocacy note that we intend to publish very soon, and that will then also feed into this discussion how to best develop the forward market in future. On the topic of capacity calculations, actually, we just want to highlight again in the report that we think it's very important that any CCR reconfiguration should be based on an economic and technical efficiency analysis. And to do so, actually, ENTSO-E has published end of last year an assessment framework where we have also included the link to this document in the report. So in this assessment framework, we actually provide such an basis for doing such an economic and technical efficiency analysis, based on which CCRs then could be reconfigured. But anyway, we also want to highlight that the concept that is at some point discussed, that a bidding zone border could be allocated to 2 different CCRs, we see it very critical, as it triggers quite some critical issues, not only technical, but also regulatory and governance questions. On the third countries, we believe that third country flows should for sure be considered in the capacity calculation and in all the relevant methodologies. But from a legal perspective, also we see that in the network codes or guidelines, it's not possible to exclude these consideration of third flows. So these are some topics we, as I said, further describe in the second chapter of the market report. If we go to the next slide, there's an overview on the SEP 17 reporting, what we usually also include every year in the market report. So the SEP 70 is actually the requirement for TSOs to make at least 70% of the transition capacity available for cross-zonal trading. And here we report on how this was done within the year 2023. We have improved this kind of reporting. So as you see on the left side, actually we have developed a new overview showing how this fulfillment of the SEP 70 minimum criterion was done in this year. So you can see then on the map, based on the color of the country, if in the country there is an action plan or a derogation applied, and then the number in the circle indicates to what extent these target was fulfilled. And I think we can assess that throughout 2023, overall, we have reached a quite good compliance with these requirements. And then, as you will find in the annex of the market report, we have also in this year's report improved it a little bit, in the sense that we have included new country fact sheets. Here you just see like a small excerpt of this, where you basically on one page for each country can see how the SEP 70 minimum capacity target was fulfilled. And also what is new is that we provide information on the differences between this kind of reporting, how the different NRAs, so the national regulatory authorities, see this, and on the other hand, the monitoring methodology that is applied by ASA. So this is quite an improvement that we have included in this year's report. And then in this slide, some other topics we see as very important within the discussion on CACM 2.0. First of all, on the 70% application in the intraday timeframe, which was also discussed already some time. Here, actually, we just want to reiterate that we think this application of the 70% in intraday is just not possible without endangering secure system operation. So first of all, in the day-ahead time frame, even already this 70% capacity minimum target can only be realized by offering virtual capacities. And in order to do so, we need sufficient redispatch measures to secure the grid operation. But if we go to the intraday timeframe, this is simply not possible because we don't have enough time to actually coordinate and also activate such amounts of redispatch measures. So the physical capacity can simply not be increased beyond security limits. Here we also want to make the link to the discussion of the definition of structural congestion that is taking place now in the CSCM 2.0 discussion. And here we think actually this is nothing that can be solved only in the CSCM 2.0, as we think these rules are actually already included in primary regulation. So we think we need a broader perspective to solve this. And it could be subject of a more structural market reform that is also, according to the market design reform, being carried out by the European Commission, that will also, like in the long-term time frame for the day ahead or the short-term markets, will carry out such an assessment on the effectiveness of the current structure. And here we think, yeah, we could, of course, we will be a constructive partner in this debate. So we already have developed a discussion paper on how the electricity market design could look like in 2030. So we have published this already some time ago, and in the market report, you can find the link to this document. Next topic is the transmission access guarantee. Probably you have heard of it, also called the TAG, which is a new concept being introduced by the market design reform to compensate offshore wind generators, which are located in an offshore bidding zone in specific cases. And here we just want to highlight that we have identified quite a lot of topics, open questions that need to be solved within this concept. And we think that some of these questions or principles are fine to be included in CSCM 2.0. So as a firm basis regulatory framework, but then other more detailed questions, we would think it makes more sense to have them included in detailed methodologies that later on will need to be worked out by TSOs and then approved by ASA. So if you want to have some more details on this, please look at the second chapter of the market report, where we further elaborate on that. And last but not least, on the market coupling, you can see also in that chapter, we have included a few topics where we want to highlight what we think is important to include in CSCM 2.0. For instance, transparency. We think it's a key for the further improvement of the market coupling. TSOs should also have the same data access as NEMOs without any additional costs. And we also think that anonymized data should be made available to the market participants. Yeah, as I said, for further details, please look at the report. And I think this concludes the end of the first part of our webinar on the market report. If we go on the next slide, I want to remind on the Slido that is ongoing actually. So if you have not done yet, here another chance to sign up in the Slido and post your questions. And besides posting questions, you can also highlight or rate already existing questions. So the higher the rating of the questions will be, the more likely is that we're gonna take it in the Q&A session in the end. So, but this is now the right time to hand over to my colleagues from the balancing report.
Yes, thank you very much, Marco, and good morning, everyone. So my name is Sarah Meyer. I work for Transnet BW, also one of the German TSOs, and together with my colleague Ignacio from Red Electrica, we will provide you an update on what has happened in the past 12 months related to balancing. As said by Marco before, we publish a more detailed version of the balancing report every second year. So we had the last one published in 2022 and have now this year a detailed version which highlights on one hand what are the major achievements we have successfully implemented regarding to the European cooperation. So on the one hand on the balancing energy side, but also on the balancing capacity side. But in addition, also provide some very interesting information on performance indicators that we calculate on an annual basis. So if we don't publish the balancing report, you can also find this information every year in the market report included. And as the third big part of the balancing report, I would say we have a chapter on national executive summaries that has been prepared by every TSO. So every TSO, in parallel to the balancing report, publishes also a national report on some local market design elements and some national and local developments. So if you're interested in also have a deeper look on what are maybe regional specifications, or if you're interested in what looks a specific market design feature in one of the European countries, then I would really recommend you to also have a look at this executive summaries, because I believe there is a lot of valuable information included and really also provides a good overview on how the market integration of balancing markets and the harmonization looks like in Europe. For the content, also as every year, we have included a period from June last year to May this year. So basically covering the period since the last report has been published. And for the PIs, we always look at the calendar years. So in the PIs, in this year's report, you find information of the data of 2023. What is the highlight basically of the balancing report? I would say most of the work that we conduct from TSO side relates to the European platforms. As said before, we have European corporations on balancing energy side. There we have the 4 big platforms, which you probably or maybe have heard of. So it's the imbalance netting platform, also IGCC called. And then we have the Picasso, Mari, and Terra platforms, which are the European platforms for the exchange of AFR, MFR, and RR products across Europe. And then on the balancing capacity side, we also have some voluntary corporations for the time being. I would say the biggest ones are the FCR corporation that we have in Europe, so a common market for the procurement of FCR. But then we also have a local or regional corporation for the exchange of AFR capacity in the Nordics, where the 4 Nordic TSOs are involved to establish a common market for the exchange of AFR capacity. And we also have the German-Austrian corporation, which is also a regional corporation for the exchange of AFR capacity. The German-Austrian corporation is a corporation that is currently further developing, I would say. The Czech TSO CEPS is also interested in joining the corporation. So one of the main highlights in the past year was that the TSOs of these corporations jointly developed and drafted and consulted a methodology using the probabilistic method according to EB regulation to allocate the cross-zonal capacity for the exchange of AFR in this corporation. There is no decision yet on these methodologies by the regulators, but the intention is to use this probabilistic method until we can use the harmonized market-based cross-zonal capacity allocation approach, which is also currently being developed by TSOs. But I will come back to that in a few minutes, just to give you then some further information on what has happened regarding the development of these methodologies. Just to sum up here, I would say the main goal of all of the work done on these platforms and corporations is to really foster the European cooperation, to take into account the operational and security constraints that we have, and really to increase the security of supply in Europe and also to ensure that we can make use of the most efficient resources that we have across the European corporations. So with this, I would go to the next slide, where we have some more information on the major developments regarding the electricity balancing methodologies. So I would say the TSOs in the past 12 months mostly focused on two methodologies or three methodologies. So the first one is the harmonized cross-zonal capacity allocation methodology, which aims at harmonizing the different processes and approaches that we have in Europe and that we can use in a balancing capacity cooperation to allocate the cross-zonal capacity between borders efficiently between the day-ahead and the balancing capacity markets. We have already drafted this harmonized methodology in the past years. We have submitted it to ACER, I believe, early 2023, and also received a decision from ACER in July last year. However, together with the decision, we also received a request for amendment where regulators ask us to further go into details, especially when it comes to the governance of balancing capacity platforms, which we intend to set up in future using mostly the market-based cross-zonal capacity allocation process that is detailed in this methodology. So what we have done in the past 12 months is basically further work on this request submitted together with the ACER decision, and we further detailed how the governance, the decision-making, the entire setup of such balancing capacity platforms will look like in future. And we are about to send or submit this amendment to ACER, I believe in a couple of days or weeks, and then expect the final ACER decision on the methodology within the next 6 months. In parallel, there has also been the start of an implementation project, which was one of the main outcomes, I would say, of this harmonized methodology. The TSOs implement or jointly develop an optimization function which carries out the split of the available cross-zonal capacity between the day-ahead and balancing capacity markets in a balancing capacity corporation. And this is the task where from TSO side we proposed to make this somehow voluntary, so engage those TSOs that are currently in a balancing capacity corporation or that they have an interest in joining such a corporation in future to jointly develop such an optimization function to make sure that in the end we have one common optimization function which is harmonized and used by the different capacity corporations that we have in Europe. And for this project, we currently have 13 TSOs that signed up to contributing to this project. It's mainly those TSOs that are already in a balancing capacity corporation or that have an interest, let's say, in joining such a corporation in near future. And this is the so-called COBRA project, which now has time until mid next year to finish and implement this optimization function. So this was one of the bigger parts that we have been working on in the past year. And then the second one, I would say, was the discussion around the prices on the balancing energy platforms. So especially on the Picasso platform for the exchange of AFR. We had a successful go live of the Picasso platform 2 years ago, where we also have already exchanges of AFR energy among those TSOs that are part and that access the platform, which are currently the German TSOs, Austria and Czech Republic. But we have also had some discussions on what are potential inefficiencies maybe of the market design, also in such a transitional period where we only have a couple of TSOs at the platforms and where the market area is still limited, where competition may be limited. Also, when we have more TSOs joining the platforms and have also such limited market areas, for example, if we don't have enough cross-zonal capacity available at a specific border to actually foster and make full use of the balancing energy bits available at the platform. this can lead to the risk that we actually observe high prices at the platforms, and to prevent such risks and to really reduce also the impact that those risks can have, TSOs have been working on developing different mitigation measures that we also put in amendment proposals, in this case in 2 different methodologies. So the one is the AFR implementation framework, and the second is the pricing methodology for balancing energy. And we have in the end proposed 4 different measures. So one is to introduce a permanent price cap at the balancing energy markets. So for those that know about the current specifications, we have a temporal price cap of 15,000 euro per megawatt hour, which has been introduced and is valid until 2026. So basically also to cover this transition period when all TSOs are joining the balancing energy platforms. But TSOs propose to make this price cap a permanent one, so also have a price cap of 15,000 euro per megawatt hour beyond 2026. Then a second measure proposed was to reduce the price cap to 10,000 euro per megawatt hour in this transitional period. So just, let's say, reduce it from 15 to 10,000 in this transitional period. And then also to introduce the possibility of using elastic demand at the Picasso platform. And last measure, to change the way how the cross-border marginal price for AFR is currently determined, just to make sure that it better reflects what has been actually activated by the platform. So we have had quite some experts that have been working on these measures. We have submitted our proposals early 2024 and are basically now waiting for ACER's decision, which should come anytime soon. So within the next couple of days, I would say. And then just on the 2 last boxes here on the slide, maybe also some developments to mention. We have, besides the balancing energy platforms, also worked on the so-called capacity management IT solution. So an IT solution that supports the balancing energy platforms in updating and providing the availability of interconnection capacities to the different balancing platforms. So this is a tool that is being developed in parallel together with the accessions to the balancing energy platforms. And then we also have still ongoing the implementation of the imbalance settlement harmonization methodology that has been approved in 2020, and where we still have some components to be implemented, including some derogations which last until January next year. And if you go to the next slide, we have a short snapshot, especially on this topic. So where do we stand when it comes to the implementation of this imbalance settlement harmonization methodology? You can see here a kind of survey of the different components that have been implemented by TSOs. So in particular, this includes the 15-minute imbalance settlement period. You can see that it has been implemented already by 13 TSOs. There is a derogation for 8 TSOs, and 3 TSOs have currently an exemption to implement this 15-minute period. Then we have also asked the question if TSOs make use of additional components, such, for example, the scarcity component or an incentive component. And here you can also see that 17 TSOs currently use or make use of such additional components, whereas 7 TSOs are not using them. And then the last question is how many TSOs are using dual pricing as of January this year. And here you can see that 6 TSOs make use of dual pricing, whereas 18 TSOs use single pricing. If you want to have more information on which TSOs are actually or have implemented which of these components, then I again recommend you to have a look at the executive summaries, because there you can really see in detail which TSOs have implemented which components, also with some more details on the implementation date and on the actual components that have been implemented. And there you can find, some further information on also the derogations that some of the TSOs have. And with this, I think we can close the update on the regulatory side. And with this, I would hand over to Ignacio.
Thank you, Sara. My name is Ignacio de la Fuente. I work in the Operation Market Department in Red Eléctrica, and I'm going to provide you some insights about the evolution of the balancing platforms. So you can see here in this slide the four balancing platforms regarding the balancing energy. First of all, regarding the Terre platform that, as you know, deals with the slower balancing product. Probably you already know that it has been decided by the Terre project that this platform will finalize its activity at the end of 2025, because, as you know, the new intraday gate closure time in Europe is going to be implemented. This new intraday gate closure time will be equal to 30 minutes. So there is no room available to manage this slow product. So this is the reason why next January 1st, 2026, Terre platform will cess its operation. Regarding IGCC platform, you will see in the next slide that currently IGCC provides the highest social welfare in Europe, but the trend of IGCC in the midterm will be also to little by little to reduce the level of netting under IGCC, and more implicit netting will be carried out under Picasso platform. So probably in the future is likely that either IGCC will disappear, or a few set of TSOs that will remain outside Picasso platform will still carry out some type of low level of netting between IGCC and Picasso platform. So regarding Picasso platform, as you know, it was in a go-live stage last June 2022. By now, as you know, the number of TSOs that are connected to Picasso platform are still very few. But in the coming months, more and more TSOs will be connected to Picasso platform. So this will be good news from the point of view of both economic feasibility of Picasso platform, and also from the point of view of security of the system. Also with these mitigation measures, high prices mitigation measures that has been already described by Sara, we hope that this economic risk that currently we have under Picasso platform, and that was the reason that because Terna suspend its operation in Picasso platform. Hopefully our aim is that this highest economic efficiency with a higher level of liquidity in Picasso platform will be achieved in the coming months. Also, finally, the Mari platform. You can see here that still a few set of TSOs are participating in Mari platform, but also we hope that in the coming months, more and more TSOs will connect to Mari platform, and also this will increase the level of liquidity of this market, and also will improve security of supply in Europe. So we can go to the next slide. And this is just a hint of the social welfare that each platform has achieved along 2023, the natural year. This is only a picture of one KPI that we encourage all of you to read the balancing report. And as mentioned before, you can see here that currently IGCC has reached the highest level of economic surplus, while the second one is Terra platform with 281 million euro. Picasso platform has the third place with 137 million euro, while Mari platform by now, along 2023, only has an economic surplus of 9 million euro. The reason of this, on one hand, is, as you know, in Mari platform, there are still a few number of TSOs connected, and also by now you can see in the report that the level of activation, unlike Picasso platform, the level of activation of Mari bits are still little. So we also hope that in the coming months, where more and more TSOs will be connected to the Mari platform, this economic surplus for sure will increase in the future. We can expect, as mentioned before, that IGCC economic surplus will reduce. So this will be the trend. And also you should know that this economic surplus in the case of IGCC is only due to savings for BRPs and final consumer, while in the rest of balancing energy platform, Terra, Picasso, and Mari is composed of BRP surplus, PSP surplus, and congestion rents. You can see in the right side of this slide regarding the reserve platforms currently in operation in Europe, already described by Sarah. You can see that in first term, Germany, Austrian AFRR exchange cooperation has got economic surplus in 2023 of 6 million euro. The FCR cooperation, the former called primary reserve in Europe, has an economic surplus of 120 million euro. You know that more than half of the total FCR requirement in Europe is being currently traded under this cooperation, FCR cooperation, and the new Nordic cooperation that went live in December 2022 has reached economic surplus of 29 million euro. So this economic surplus of 29 million euro is composed of the surplus regarding the reserve market itself, minus the impact of this activity in the day-ahead energy market. So Nordic cooperation will evolve in the future towards the harmonized cross-zonal capacity allocation that, as has been already explained by Sarah, will be finally submitted to ACER for approval at the end of July. So this is all. I really encourage you to read the balancing report. This is just hints of what is written in the balancing report. And let's now open the questions, that potential questions that you may have. So thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before we get to the Q&A session, I just want to quickly announce also another new development that we have included in the market report this year. We have developed several short videos on the different topics we report, and we have included in the reports that we subsequently will publish on social media within the next weeks. So just to keep you entertained during this summer. And yeah, now I think we will get to the Q&A part, which is then taken by Nicoletta Michael. And I think we already have some questions in the chat or in the Slido.
Hello. Yes, indeed, we have some questions on Slido. Maybe I can put them on screen here. So we can start with the first one. Could you elaborate why only 5% of the PTRs has been nominated? And I will address that to Jim.
Thanks, Nicoletta, and thanks for the question. I mean, we don't know the exact reason why only 5% is nominated, but we do see it as a trust in the day-ahead market and as the long-term products that we offer, that they offer the hedging need that the market sees. So it's no need for actually nominating these capacities. And I think there was also another question tackled to me. I guess we can take that as well.
Yeah.
It's related to the timeline of the long-term flow-based allocation. I mean, nothing is determined as of now. The decision was taken yesterday. So we will revert with a updated time plan as soon as we can. And we are, of course, analyzing and evaluating the way forward from here.
Thank you, Jim. So we can move then to the next question. Would you be able to give examples of things that need to be improved? For example, linked to recent partial decoupling event and corresponding mitigation measures. Andre, that's for you.
Yeah, well, we are still in the midst of it, so we are working on solution as we speak. But obviously, one thing comes to mind. The understanding of us is that while the various fallback processes have been triggered, there was quite some confusion on the market participant side, actually, what fallback processes are there. So obviously, there's more of a need to educate the market how and to what extent fallback processes are triggered and what nuances we have in the various regions to apply them under the current framework that we have. So obviously here is more education needed. Similar also with the IDAs, because also the IDAs and the day ahead are somewhat swinging time-wise very quickly together. So obviously here there was also a surprise that one NEMO went live or took the IDA one following the incident and the others couldn't. So obviously here there is also a need to further streamline the understanding of all market participants in those situations that even if we have a difficulty in the day ahead time frame or fallbacks are triggered, that still the others could be used depending a bit on the NEMO that is carrying the information. Certainly, secondly, I think a big lesson takeaway is that the communication on the various fronts when it comes to extraordinary measures being taken needs to be more self-explanatory, more centrally available, more timely available, and more hinting to the next steps that market participants need to take. So we have initiated a major review, not just from the central project, but also in the regions where we would need more detailed assessment or via the service provider, for example, JAO, when it comes to the triggering of shadow auction. So I think there are multiple instances that we are currently working on to ensure that those processes are triggered in the well way. And on top of that, we are obviously trying to make the processes even more robust moving forward.
Thank you, Andre.
There was another question, I suppose. I think the Nordic flow base go live, right?
That's right. Yeah. What's the precise date of Nordic flow-based
Okay.
market coupling go live in October
Yeah.
24?
Yeah, we are still planning on that. That is a bit difficult due to the fact that we have multiple go lives in quick succession or previous to the Nordic flow-based. One would be the inclusion of BRM and day ahead, plus the booking of relevant testing environments. So over the summer, there will be a couple of assessments still to be made. Obviously, we want to skip the DST, the daylight saving time switch on 27th of October, if I'm not mistaken, on top of my head. So it is very likely that the day would be the last week of October, but this is something that is currently under assessment, also taking into consideration the availability of the various testing environments, etc. So this will be then centrally communicated via the Nordic flow-based project in due time.
Thank you, Andre. So we can move to the next question, which would be on balancing. Sarah, if you can take this one, please. Is it correct to assume that the updated timeline for TSOs to join balancing platforms will be shared as soon as Acer's decision is published? If not, when?
Yes, thank you for the question. So there will be an updated accession roadmap both for Picasso and Mari published soon. So I don't know when exactly, but it will be within the next couple of days. So either it is still this week, or if not, then early next week. And after that, we will have, as usual, the regular updates, which we usually have around spring and autumn.
Thank you, Sarah. And we have another question on balancing regarding Tere. Does this mean that TSOs will stop using RR processes locally, Ignacio? You're still muted, Ignacio. If you can turn on your microphone. Thanks.
Thank you. The idea that I have is that in a progressive manner, TSOs that are currently participating in Terre will disconnect from the platform. I know that the first one in disconnect will be CHEPS. Poland TSO, Polish TSO will not connect. Will plan to connect, but finally will not connect. And a few set of TSOs, including the Spanish TSO, will be connected until the end of the period that I already mentioned before, until the end of 2025, operating in a regional manner. I assume that, for instance, still between the remaining TSOs that will keep connected to Terra platform along 2025, we will still interchange Terra product. But it's true that at the end of 2025, all of us will fully disconnect and not apply, even in a local manner. We won't operate because there is no sense with this gate closure time of intraday market equal to 30 minutes.
Thank you, Ignacio.
Thank you.
I believe these are all the questions. So I give the floor back to you, Marco.
Yes, thank you. I think we have covered all the questions. I have not seen any further coming in. So I think it's a good moment to conclude now on the webinar. Thank you again, everyone who presented these insights from the both reports that are published. And yeah, I encourage everyone again to have a look in the reports. You can find them via the ENTSO-E website. And yeah, I think that's it then for now. Nothing more, just wishing you a very nice rest of the day. Thank you very much.